At 8,035 metres, Gasherbrum 2 in Pakistan is the 13th highest mountain in the world. Last year saw the first ever winter ascent by a trio of climbers, Simone Morrow, Dennis de Bruyne and Corey Richards. Simone explains the approach.
We can replicate the alpinism of the 50s or the 20s, where the expedition was really the only one. No one on the mountain, a real adventure, a real exploration.
For me, with mountaineering, it's as a game, as a toy, but with my possibility to do something best.
You hear about these mountains, you read about them, you see pictures of them, but nothing prepares you to fly in and actually see the vertical relief, the terrain that you've filled your mind with.
For me, visit to Karakorum, to Pakistan, is very interesting because here is very similar culture as in my home and as in Kazakhstan. This looks as in Central Asia. There I already spent many expeditions in young age. Now I feel here as a young soul again.
Our project is to realize the first winter ascent of one of the 8,000-meter peaks of Pakistan. Gasherbrum 2 has no previous attempt, so there is no previous history of someone who attempted the mountain. Just to arrive in Skart, we have to take a plane that had been cancelled for 2 days due to the bad weather. But this is not a part of the reality. And here the adventure is also in the logistics. We arrive here with 250 kilos of cargo.
It's very difficult to be here, to feel quiet, to feel the safety. I feel also the problems of Pakistan people because they have very difficult life sometimes.
You never know what you're going to get. It's not an easy thing to stomach.
The mountain will be completely isolated. There will be no other people, no other trekkers. So you have to be ready to attempt the mountain without share the effort with other members.
After 2 days in Skardu, staring up the foothills of the Karakoram, it was time to go higher.
We decide to acclimatize, organizing a small expedition inside the big expedition. We will attempt a mountain that the name is Khosargang.
Knowing prior acclimatization would be key to our success, the three of us piled into a Jeep for a 2-hour trip up the end of the Karakoram Highway.
Without the proper acclimatization, you can die, or you die.
It felt good to be moving, though slightly uncertain of what lay ahead. Arriving at the trailhead in early morning sun, the only thing that lay between us and base camp was 5,000 feet of vertical gain. The porters took it in stride. After a quick break, they were kind enough to help us set up shop in an old sheep herder's pasture. All we had left to do was eat and rest.
The team is perfect because it's very basic, light, and there is very good feeling in between. Dennis, Corey, and I, we knew each other before, and this is not a detail. It's very important when you want to achieve such kind of extreme goal and adventure. To climb 8,000-meter peaks in winter is completely different than not to climb in the normal season. quite different because, first of all, usually you are the only expedition in all the mountain range. Like it's happened in Makalu when I climb with Denis Rubko in winter that mountain.
It was the first step of my real dream to do 8,000 meters peak by new route in alpine style. Also, I did with Simone already Makalu in winter. It was in Nepal. But here's huge mountains, different feeling as in Himalayas, for example.
After one day in base camp, we decided to make our way up, uncertain of how high we were actually going.
The altitude reported in the map is 6,400 meters, but it's not sure.
We arrived in Camp 1 and spent 2 nights breathing thinner air before heading higher.
Yeah, the cook should be Italian cook or no, something from East, maybe Russian cook.
During the night, the temperature would plummet to minus 25. Wearing only light boots, we were forced to turn around just shy of the summit due to the threat of frostbite.
25,800. The map, as we calculate, should be 6,000. TV is the summit behind. Now it's really sort of cold. We're doing just acclimatization. This is not our goal.
After a 6-hour descent that took us all the way to the valley bottom, we found ourselves comfortably back in Skardu. After our acclimatization mission and 2 days rest in Skardu, it was time to pack up.
Bringing a helicopter into base camp was a big decision. We made that decision based on 2 factors primarily. The first being safety of the porters, and the second being the environmental impact.
With 2,500 kilos of equipment, we would need 250 porters for a land approach. This manpower would burn thousands of liters of kerosene over the 15-day round-trip journey to base camp. Doing the math, it was far safer and much less environmentally impactful taking the helicopter. Completely isolated and totally wild, The flight at the Baltoro in the middle of winter was spectacular.
The flight in has to be one of the best, coolest, most visually exciting experiences of my life.
In 40 minutes of flight, we saw the most famous mountain that all the mountaineers saw in some pictures or read some stories.
We arrived at base camp and set up shop in a small valley that would be a river in the summertime. As evening approached, our cooks prepared a delicious meal of mutton. Bedding down under icy clear skies, our spirits were high, only to awaken to this. With storm clouds and high winds, we decided to go up anyway, forging our way through the icefall and finding the route on the first day. We found our way through countless seracs and over deep crevasses, finally finding a place to cache our gear. As we began our descent to base camp, the weather worsened. After 2 days' rest, Simone and Dennis started up again. I stayed in base camp due to minor illness. There were plenty of not-so-subtle reminders telling us where we were and the consequences of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. They found their way through the icefall to where we had cached our gear and made slow progress through deep snow over the next day. Bored in base camp and curious about their progress, I received a single-word text via sat phone. The one word: cold.
Dennis, how are you?
Come sopravviviamo?
Very cold night, huh?
Very cold.
Winter here is Baltic. It's beyond cold. Every day it's minus 30 at night, you know, or more. Yesterday, going through, you know, the coombe up there was minus 30 ambient temperature without wind chill, and it's dramatically more uncomfortable than winter in Nepal. Everything is cold. Your toes are cold, your fingers are cold. I mean, I've always got ice on my what little beard I have, and it's just it takes it out of you for sure. It really sucks your energy out.
Here's huge mountains, different feeling as in Himalayas, for example, because this really looking as a wild place of the world, wild point of the world on the globe.
Normal people, smart people, wouldn't even go outside in weather like this. Unfortunately, I've never been accused of being either.
The condition, it looks more or less like we had in Makalu. Maybe a little warmer and less wind. The only things that I want to ask you is, do you confirm that the first and the second should be the only day that the sun could appear? Or half day, only maybe the second?
With a 36-hour weather window forecasted by Carl Gobel in Innsbruck, we set off into a storm after only 3 days of rest. Five and a half hours later, we arrived at Camp 1 with heavy legs, feeling our prior acclimatization mission. Settling into the VE25, we brewed tea and recounted the excitement of the day, including one significant crevasse fall by Dennis.
If you don't have rope, you go a lot down.
There's about, okay, not 60 but 40 meters.
Yeah.
Very deep, very deep.
Deniska! No!
I was shaken a little bit because when I fell down and next turn, there was a small fixation in the bottom. My eyes.
Day 2, we awoke to the same storm, but continued upward, hoping the conditions would get better. Unfortunately, they didn't. With the weather still bad, we arrived at Camp 2 tired and full of doubt.
Also because when we start from base camp, we didn't recover completely. It was only 3 days in base camp. We spent 4 days on the mountain and 3 days only in base camp. So this is the things that make me worry. That maybe we don't have power enough.
Just as Carl Gobel had forecasted, Day 3 dawned under calm skies. We began climbing to Camp 3.
We are very high. We can see a lot of mountain from here. Should be 6-9. And tonight at 3 a.m., 3 o'clock in the morning, we will start from here and we'll attempt the summit.
The sun greeted us over the shoulder of Gasherbrum 1 as we crested the 7,600-meter plateau. Every step became a challenge, a battle between mind and body. Body wanting to go down, mind willing us to go up. And suddenly, as if in a dream, we were there, on top of Gasherbrum 2, in the heart of winter. But getting up is only halfway. We began the descent into worsening weather. 14 hours after leaving, we arrived back at our tent, totally exhausted. With burnt lungs and cold feet, we tried to sleep, coughing through the night. The morning of day 5 dawned terribly. We packed up, hoping to make the descent all the way to base camp. We only made it to Camp 1. We rolled back into the VE-25 and lit the stoves, trying desperately to warm our hands and feet. The following morning, after our 5th night in freezing sleeping bags, we began the descent to base camp in terrible weather, the worst we'd seen yet. Our trail forced us to traverse under a huge slope of G5. Seracs looming overhead, we knew the slopes were now horribly wind-loaded from the storm. As our progress slowed, I felt in the pit of my stomach it was only a matter of time before something went terribly, terribly wrong. Unfortunately, it did. As a massive avalanche off the slopes of G5 overtook us, the world became chaotic and black. Just tell me what happened. Big avalanche. All 3 buried. Miraculously, we all survived. 6 arduous hours later, and 2 major crevasse falls, we walked the final 100 meters to base camp. Our cooks and staff were overjoyed to see us alive.